So, which Diablo game should you be playing before Diablo 4? Or if you're just itching to play some more Diablo, obviously with that beta weekend, a lot of people want to check out the previous Diablo games in the series, and I get asked quite frequently, which one should I play and in which order should I play them, because that's actually something very important, as all of the Diablo games actually play completely different, with the exception of maybe Diablo 3 and Immortal kind of being very similar in terms of the gameplay playstyle as well as the loot progression. So over here, what you're seeing in the background right now is all of the ultimate abilities in Diablo 4. This is max level that we had in the beta, but I want to go and highlight all of the Diablo games in this video and kind of talk about each one and maybe why you should play them depending on your playstyle, as they actually play quite differently from one another because they're released so far apart. So if you're interested in picking up these games before playing Diablo 4 because you were worried that you may not understand the gameplay or the story for the game if you didn't play the previous games, don't worry too much about that. You can play Diablo 4 perfectly fine. There are going to be characters and references to the previous Diablo games. However, it's not going to be like a requirement, and you won't feel completely lost if you haven't played the previous entries in the series. So right off, I want to go ahead and mention that I play all the Diablo games. There are some content creators that only specifically go into like one niche, like they only play Diablo 2, or they only play Diablo 2 vanilla, or they only play Diablo 3. I actually do enjoy playing all of them, and that includes 3 with the most recent season. I actually reached rank number 2 on the first day of the ladder reset, so to speak. And so I like to min-max my characters, and that's something that's important. Are you more of a casual player, or are you someone that likes to min-max, as in you like to put in a lot of time to your characters, hundreds, thousands of hours to get a good character? Because sometimes people don't have the time for that, and I totally get that. So it depends on your playstyle. So what you're seeing right here, and I want to start off the video with going over Diablo 1. Now, this is a modded Diablo 1, so we have better resolution. There's like different like inventory, space managements, but it depends on what you want to do. So starting right off, Diablo 1 is kind of the only game where I would say it's kind of PC only. And I say kind of PC because it exists on the PS1. It's not cheap to buy if you want to get like an official copy of the game because it's quite rare. However, with PC, you don't have to load every single time you want to open up your inventory versus on the PlayStation copy of Diablo 1. That's what's required. But as far as what Diablo 1 does very well is it's one of the games in the series that actually makes the game kind of feel scary. And the reason why is because at any point, if you get surrounded by monsters, you are dead a lot of the times. It requires you to really have some game knowledge. Now, you don't have to follow a guide necessarily, but it's more so that you just need to know how the game works. You can follow a guide, but there are things where there are certain things that if you click on, it can permanently change your character. And if you didn't make like a quick save, you are stuck with that change, and it could actually ruin your character if you have a certain requirement for an item. It will kind of brick your character in some sort of a way. So it's not beginner friendly at all. However, I would say in terms of its story-wise, I really like Diablo 1 with Paul Edding's voice acting when you click on these little books. It's really good. It is a lot slower. It's the slowest game in the series. It's the hardest game in the series. And on top of that, this is what you're seeing as mods here. So normally with Diablo 1, you won't be able to get like a level up point and get like a perk or some special like ability. You just get attribute points, which you can throw in. Learn your skills in Diablo 1. You actually have to find your skills, which I think is kind of cool. There's also innate skills in the game, like you have with the sorcerer, you're able to repair staves, or if you play the rogue, you can see traps. There's a lot of different things that you can do in the game. Specifically, if you're looking to play Diablo 1, I would highly recommend the Hell 1 and 2 mods, but I also kind of want to briefly go over price point now that you guys have seen some like brief little gameplay. It's hard though, just as a heads up. I would not really recommend this for casual players, especially because the game is kind of difficult in terms of its control scheme. The control scheme in Diablo 1 and even Diablo 2 Classic and LOD, the control scheme is a lot better in Diablo 2 Resurrected. So if you're a casual player, I probably would save 1 for the last. Like I'd actually recommend if you really enjoyed, let's say maybe Diablo 3, then you really like Diablo 2, then try Diablo 1. The reason why is because Diablo 1, it's got a very steep learning curve, and it is also not beginner friendly in the sense where if you get surrounded by monsters, you're not going to be able to recover from the hit, and you will just die to monsters. And it's kind of discouraging for a beginner player to play Diablo 1 unless you are more accepting of like older games where you just die and it's kind of like a trial by fire. Now, There is an expansion with Diablo 1 called Hellfire. Now, this is not one that's on the official Blizzard store. I'm going to go ahead and mention price point because sometimes people want to know, I want to go buy this game, but how much is it, right? So I'm going to kind of include this briefly in the video. Now, this is one of the games in the Diablo series that you can't just go to the Blizzard store and just purchase through Battle.net. This one's actually going to be purchasable by GOG, but you can get like a used copy, a physical copy if you want to. They still do exist. Next up, I want to talk about Diablo 2 Resurrected. So this is probably one of the ones where if you really enjoy Diablo 4, visually it's the most similar. It is a little bit harder, but they have optimized the game to be able to be played with a controller very, very well, and you can actually activate your skills by just pushing the button versus having to select it or hitting the F keys, which is something that I had to do with like the classic Diablo 2. That's just the way that the game played. But the controls are so much better for Diablo 2 Resurrected that I could really recommend this game if you enjoyed Diablo 4. But the game isn't going to be super easy. What you're watching right here is a complete new player walkthrough for the campaign. So if you are interested in a full guide, I will also pin that down below. But visually, this game just looks so dang good. But it is going to take you quite a bit of time. The difference between Diablo 1 and Diablo 2 is the speed. This game is actually pretty fast. I would say Diablo 3 is still faster, but if you get an item called Enigma, you can teleport with any character class in the game. But this game, it will require you to have a lot of time invested to get all of your gear. And that is because some of these items require RuneWords, and getting the item to drop with the sockets to get the runes and then to socket them in, it just takes a really long time. So if you have hundreds or even thousands of hours to put into a game, I would say Diablo 2, it feels very rewarding, as you may get some items that no one else will have. And it kind of adds that like elite feel of like, I got this really cool item, check out my item. Whereas Diablo 3, it's a little bit more relaxed in terms of getting the gear. But Diablo 2 is one of the most iconic games in the entire series. They all got really good voice acting, but I just really like the voice actors in Diablo 2 specifically. There's also the secret level that you can have in the game. And one thing that I think Diablo 2 did that I really liked was having these rune words that would allow you to have abilities from other classes. Like you could make a sorceress that transforms into a bear. That's something you can't really do in Diablo 3, or even Diablo 1 kind of has certain skills, because the skill book, how it works is you just get the skill book to get new skills. Diablo 2 offers a lot of crazier builds. Now, are these builds going to be viable? No, there are some builds that are terrible, but it's cool that you can do it, and the fact that you can do it is a little bit more interesting. And I really also like the mercenary system in Diablo 2, because some of the mercenaries, they can legitimately carry you through the game. But yeah, it's going to require a lot more time. Casuals can definitely have a lot of fun with Diablo 2, but if you want to be like the best of the best, it's going to take a really, really long time in Diablo 2, specifically to get all of your gear ready to go. So in terms of Diablo 2 Resurrected, this is going to be a highly recommend, not only for casuals, but people that are more hardcore as well. Now, moving on to the next game that I actually want to talk about, and really quickly going over the difference, there is something called Diablo 2 Resurrected that is different than the Diablo 2 Classic and LOD. As the Diablo 2 Classic and LOD, you can get the visuals in Diablo 2 Resurrected to make it look like the one that came out in 2001. However, in terms of being able to do mods, you cannot mod Diablo 2 Resurrected, which is a big point. So it's set to $40, but there are bundles where you can buy it. Like you can see this one over here. It has the Prime Evil Collection, which includes Diablo 3 Reaper of Souls expansion, and also includes Rise of the Necromancer. So if you want to buy this bundle, it is actually a pretty good deal, obviously because it's bundled up, so you will save some money. But Diablo 2 Resurrected is a highly recommend. Now, this is different than Diablo 2 Lord of Destruction expansion with Diablo 2, which is 2000. So this one over here is $20 because you need this and the expansion to play most of the mods. Or if you just want to play the game, Diablo 2 LOD did amazing, amazing things. Plus, Diablo 2 Resurrected still gets brand new items, and they do reset the ladder from time to time. So if you're looking for a game that gets support, by the way, Diablo 1 gets no support in terms of like adding new content, new seasons, so to speak. Whereas Diablo 2 still actually does get that. And on top of that, Diablo 2 gets really awesome mod support. So what you're seeing right here is Median XL. Now, what Diablo 2 looks like is, it basically looks like this, although there's going to be this mod technically makes the game look a little bit better visually in terms of like certain color saturation and things. But for the most part, this is what Diablo 2 looks like. For some people, it looks a little bit outdated, but remember, this game came out in the year 2000. I'm okay with it. And so if I was interested in playing mods, I would highly recommend checking out Diablo 2. I mean, look at how many more skill trees this thing adds. You can see this is the assassin, where we can go into ninja. There's different weapons that we can acquire in the game. There's completely different ways to play, so many different builds. You can still play online with friends in Median XL, but it requires you to purchase Diablo 2 and the expansion to actually have access to this mod. You're gonna have to download it. It's not like official mods because, you know, it's a fan-made thing, but there is support for it, and they are still making new content. There's loot goblins in Diablo 2 that they added, and it's just basically Diablo 2. But remember, as a heads up, you cannot have Diablo 2 Resurrected and play Median XL or Reaper of Souls mod or Anelius. There's so many Diablo servers. There's like Rising Sun, it's another mod, but there's so many really cool mods, and I highly recommend you guys to check out Diablo mods if you want to kind of play Diablo and you're just waiting for Diablo 4. This is usually what I do while I'm waiting for the next season of, let's say, Diablo 3. But speaking of Diablo 3, let's kind of talk a little bit about that now. So Diablo 3 actually has several different things that you can purchase. So there's the vanilla copy, which is $20. Then there's the battle chest, which includes the Reaper of Souls expansion, and then there's the Eternal collection, which is $40, but that comes with the Necromancer. My recommendation, if you haven't played any of them, definitely get the one that comes with the Reaper of Souls expansion. That will not only add another class to the game, which is the Crusader, but it also will include the endgame. Diablo 3's endgame doesn't really exist unless you have Reaper of Souls to do the rifts and get the legendary gems and do a lot more forms of content. So I really would recommend getting the battle chest because it completely changes up your experience. And if you enjoy it, then you can spend the extra money and get the Necromancer. Unless you're like, I just want to play Necromancer, it's my favorite class in Diablo 4, then just get the Eternal collection, because without it, you will not get access to the Necromancer. That is basically the difference between the expansion over here. It's just the class. Now, in terms of Diablo 3, I can link you guys a video. Also, I have this pin for season 28. I have the full 1 through 70, the fastest way to level solo, and I briefly want to talk about the difference between Diablo 2 and 3. So I mentioned that Diablo 2 takes a really long time to get up gear. Diablo 3, if you know what you're doing, it can be 1 to 2 days. You can just spend a weekend and you get a maxed out character. I mean, it only takes 1 hour to get to max level in the game, as long as you have adventure mode unlocked. I believe they actually changed it so you can just get adventure mode before you had to do the campaign. As far as the campaign goes, this one has the most straightforward go over here for the objective. So if you are like brand new to the series, like Diablo 4 is your very first game, I would recommend checking out specifically in this order. Checking out Diablo 3, then going to Diablo 2 Resurrected, and then going into Diablo 2 Classic with Lord of Destruction, and then Diablo 1 last, because it's kind of weird that I would recommend you guys to go backwards in the series, and that is because the way that the game works in terms of its learning curve and its difficulty, and they do play super different. Diablo 1 specifically being super slow compared to Diablo 3, like I'm just leveling here and I'm just mowing through content. This is the most beginner friendly, and it's also the best to play with friends because you can just hop in and join a random group and you can even meet people. And the best part with Diablo 3 is honestly the community. If you get an item that drops and it's really good and you don't need it, people will just throw it on the floor and say, hey, do you need this? You're playing this class. I will give you this item for free. Whereas Diablo 2, it's like, hey, I got this good item. What do you got to trade? So it's really easy to meet new friends in Diablo 3, and I would say the community is very, very nice in explaining things. If you don't know certain things, there's tons of build guides. We've actually made lots of build guides as well over on the channel. So if you're looking to play a certain class, I have most of the classes already uploaded for this season in terms of like, this is the best class. And it's really easy to find out which one is the best by just going up on the leaderboard and seeing what people are using. But sometimes it's good to have a guide because it explains how certain skills work and interactions, and maybe even breakpoints or certain things that may not be super easy to understand. But pretty much if you want to get like the best character, it's very easy to max out, and if you got other things you got to do, Diablo 3 lets you have that experience of having a super, super powerful character that can just destroy demons and collect loot with friends at a very, very fast pace. It's probably arguably the fastest in the Diablo series, even though like in Diablo 2 with Enigma, you can go pretty fast with like a Hammerden. It's really hard to compete with the speed that you can do Diablo 3 content with, especially if you can get like maybe even like the God Demon Hunter, which like spins and you just mow down content. It's very, very fast. So I'd recommend Diablo 3 for casual players, but if you're more of a hardcore player, you can play obviously hardcore in terms of a mode, but there is really cool features like the Kanai's Cube that do allow you to specifically play and kind of get gear and min-max your character a little bit more with even like the crafting. If you're interested in crafting, by the way, because this is something I get asked, Median XL as well as Diablo 1 do offer some pretty good crafting, but in terms of crafting, Diablo 2 is the only game with the cube where you can kind of craft. It's very, very rare to get good items, but when you do get that good item in Diablo 2, it feels so good because like no one else can have it. Whereas Diablo 3, everyone kind of has the same item, and if that doesn't bother you, then Diablo 3 would be a good thing to recommend. But I know for some people, they like spending hours and hours crafting things because it's another way to play, you know, the part of endgame content is to try to get some of the most powerful items in the game, and to be that crafter, it can definitely feel super good. Now, as far as the last game that I briefly want to mention, even though this video is mostly focusing in on Diablo 1, 2, and 3, I will give a shout out to Immortal. Immortal does actually have very similar gameplay to Diablo 3. In fact, let's go ahead and just swap over to some gameplay so you guys can see. I have the full walkthrough for the campaign if you guys want to see that as well. But as far as Immortal goes, it's super similar to Diablo 3 in terms of how it actually plays, in terms of like the legendaries and gaining gear. It's very similar in that sense. However, I would just recommend to play Diablo 3 if you have the option. However, Immortal is completely free, and Immortal does actually have some really cool puzzles. Actually, this is my favorite thing with Immortal. There's a puzzle where you have this beam of light, and you actually have to like make it go somewhere. Now, Immortal also has like a battle pass where you're able to get different cosmetics, which for some people, they like that idea of having dailies and things to do in the game, which Diablo 4 actually will have certain things where you have like some sort of time to do, whether it's like a world boss. You can't just sit there and just keep on farming the same boss. It has like a cooldown timer, which Immortal is similar in that sense in terms of its gameplay. But I'm curious to know also what your favorite Diablo game is. If maybe you played 1, 2, or 3, or 4. Which one is your favorite in the series? That's going to wrap it up for the video. Thanks for tuning in. If you guys enjoyed the video, drop a like on it and check out the pinned comment if you guys would like to see more. If you'd like to see more of my content, feel free to hit subscribe and turn on that bell and check the pinned comment for more. And I'll see you in the next video. Peace out.